like PDF saved and stuff.
So the opening statement, this is the neg-ask statement. For example, as Susie said, Michelle and I affirm or negate the following resolution. In the opening statement, you also define the key terms in the resolution to your advantage. For example, if you were to say that single-gender classrooms would improve the quality of education in the United States, you would define single-gendered. Since the resolution states single-gender classrooms only, Merriam-Webster defines gender as such and such. We could define gender as both sex in the biological sense or the societal sense. Make sure the reason to define the key terms in your resolution is to make sure the judge understands them. The entire point of PF debate is to appeal to a lay judge, to appeal to a random citizen and convince them of your argument.
And also the worst type of round is when terms haven't been defined and you guys are having an argument over definitions. What you want to have is an argument over like substantial evidence-based contentions that don't have anything to do with like petty things like definitions. So in order to avoid that, you want to make sure that you include definitions.
All right, so following your opening statement, you often want to have a framework for your argument. So this is where you sort of outline what you and your opponents have to do to win this debate. Or structure for the debate and how it should proceed. For example, the use of on balance within the resolution shows that we as con only have to prove that the harms of the issue outweigh the benefits, not that there are absolutely no benefits. Something like this can be useful because what you can expect from your opponents often is that they're going to have a good argument also, but a framework can help to serve as evidence that even though they may have presented a good argument as well, based off that framework that you extracted from the resolution, you have won overall.
Other types of frameworks include, for example, we are going to promote a utilitarian focus, so this round should be weighed in this sense, or an economic focus, just to really make your contentions seem like they outweigh in terms of magnitude in comparison to your opponents.
Okay, so contentions. These are what Susie had in her argument. A contention is essentially your argument, the specific argument you're arguing. For example, contention 1 in terms of GMOs. Genetically modified foods offer environmental benefits. That is your statement. Now you have to have evidence to prove that statement. This evidence comes from statistics, articles, academic scholars, things of that sort. For example, Barfoot and Briggs from Pre-G Economics note in an in-depth report that in 2012, crop biotechnology aided in the removal of over 27 billion kg of carbon dioxide from the environment, or the equivalent of 11.9 million cars from the roads. Now, this may just seem like a skew of figures and facts, but if you could take that evidence and tie it back into your contention and have impact, that this impact of those 27 billion kilograms of carbon dioxide from the environment stopped the widening of the ozone layer. It stopped CO2 emissions. It helped benefit the environment as a whole, and because of this, GMOs offer environmental benefits.
I don't think we can stress enough the importance of having an impact with your evidence because, like I said previously, you want to be catering towards your judge, and if you're just spewing out facts with a bunch of numbers and things that are hard to keep straight, it's not going to be as effective even if you have a ton of evidence.
Okay, so this is the debate format. This is where PF and other debates differ greatly. So you have Team A and Team B. The first speaker is a speaker that must be the more eloquent one. They must be one who is good at reading speeches, who knows how to present themselves well, and has good podium presence per se. They know what they're arguing, and they can say it easily and say it in a manner that is very convincing. For example, in our team, Jessica is the first speaker because she's far more eloquent than I am. And then for the Team A speaker one, they prepare their speech. They say out their arguments as Susie had done. She would be the first speaker in their argument. Then the opposing team brings their speech up. They have their first speaker go for 4 minutes. They read their speech. The entire point of the first speech is just to outline the arguments that are on the floor at that time. Then you have the crossfire. This is where parliamentary and PF debate differ the most. The crossfire is an informal debate between two speakers. I would question Susie's argument, and she would respond with a question. For example, I could say, how exactly would bicycles benefit the environment as a whole in terms of economic development?
And she would respond by saying, I will respond to that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So after the first speakers of each team present their case and then give a crossfire, this is kind of a confusing format, but essentially each team has 2 speakers, and then the second speakers, each person on each team who hasn't spoken yet, present their case, and this is where you're sort of refuting your opponent's points and relating them back to your own and how yours are superior. So this speaker, unlike the first, they don't really have a written out speech which they can just go down like the one that Susie just presented. They have to be more they have to relate back more to what has occurred in the crossfire and maybe like reference some points in the first speaker of the opposing team in their case and sort of show how they have made points to refute this. And then like the first two speakers, these two will also have a crossfire with the same sort of, rules and everything. You'll just present a question and then they'll answer it to the best of their ability. They'll present you a question and you get however much done you can within 3 minutes.
Third speaker, summary. Okay, so summary is pretty much where the first speaker is going to, say what essentially the debate boils down to. And this is a time for you to talk about some main voting issues and how the judge and why exactly the judge is going to vote for you based on the impacts of the issues that have been going on in the round.
And then finally, the final focus. This is where you...
Grand crossfire.
Oh, sorry, the grand crossfire is the most important part.
So,
yeah.
Most fun part, definitely.
Yeah.
So the grand crossfire takes place right after the summary, and this is between all 4 debaters who are involved, where everyone can ask questions and answer them, and this is often one of the most heated parts of the debate, at least in our experience. I'm sure you guys can affirm that. So then, after the grand crossfire takes place, it is the final focus, in which case you try and wrap up the debate and all the points that you've made and the points that you've refuted. And essentially this is a time to reference back to your framework and your evidence and explain why you have won this debate. And then obviously the opposition gets to make their final focus as well, where they'll basically say the exact opposite. You can't really do anything about it. And then it's completed. That's it.
Yeah, and within this debate, you have 2 minutes of prep time to use it after any speech. So for example, if you have a really important idea that you can't articulate without writing it down, you can call for prep time. You can ask for a 30-second prep time to confer with your partner and frame your argument.
And it's important that you make use of this prep time as opposed to just speaking out of turn or whispering to your partner under your breath.
Yeah, there's nothing that judges hate more than people that aren't courteous in the debate. If you're whispering, making a scene while people are talking, you may not even realize it, but they will subconsciously have a favor for the other team.
Having blatant reactions on your face to something that your opposition is saying, just stuff like that, general etiquette, not appreciated.
Yeah. So before the tournament, the main thing is research. Essentially, 60% of debate is research, 40% of debate is actual arguing. So there are 2 types of there are 2 types of research. There are cards and there are blocks. Cards are points of evidence that support your statement, and blocks are points of evidence that negate your opponent's statement. For example, a block could be why bicycles harm our world. A block is essentially a piece of evidence that refutes your opponent's argument. So if you know that in a certain topic, certain arguments will come up over and over again, you have a prepared list of blocks, per se, that will refute those opponents. For example, if she was to argue, let's say the topic was cats are better than dogs, and she was to argue that dogs have better athletic ability, I would bring a block in that said dogs, in fact, do not have better athletic ability, cats have better athletic ability. So this is an example of a block. A card would be a point of evidence that supports my statement. So I would have a card saying that cats are more beautiful creatures. That would be my card. A block would be that dogs are ugly. No. Yeah.
I think it's important to note that all evidence that you plan on presenting within the round must be stated by the within the second speech, right? Anything after that is not applicable. So for example, I couldn't present a new point of evidence in my final focus and say well, because of this, something that my opponents didn't have the chance to refute, we won this debate. You can't do that. You have to present all your evidence within a certain time period. So it's fair.
Okay, this is an example of card.
Next.
So, yeah. And we'll post this PowerPoint. We email this to your 2 teachers. They can post it. You guys can look through it and see the actual examples. Okay, yeah.
Should I?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, so partner communication is really essential to having a successful debate career. So you need to communicate with your partner and establish the first and second speakers in each pairing, because each person should focus on, for example, I'm first speaker, so throughout my debate career, I've focused on first speaker, and therefore I've been able to hone that skill. We've already been over, but first speaker is the one that reads the prepared speech, and should be, they're the one that reads the first speech, and they do some rebuttals and the summary.
Yeah, I think that's something that kids are often tempted to try. I know that Fatima and I did it. When you enter debate, you sort of feel like, okay, so for this round, I'll be first speaker, you be second, vice versa, alternating each round.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. I absolutely recommend like testing it out and seeing what you and your partner are more compatible being, because it's not just a matter of you individually, but you also have to account for what your partner is good and bad at. But you should really attempt to decide where you're going to be within your partnership within, you know, a few debates, because like it's important that you begin like mastering certain skills as opposed to trying to balance two and not necessarily excelling at either of them.
This is the definition of second speaker, just what we said before.
Like we said, just you don't have a written out speech, it's someone who needs to be good at taking from the debate that has it as it has progressed previously and putting that into words.
Yeah, by now you should know what your skills are, so if you feel like you are very good at refutation, second speaker is better for you. If you feel like you're very good at public speaking, first speaker might be more of your...
I mean, they both do rebuttals, but second speaker is definitely more rebuttal intensive.
Yeah.
It's a larger portion of your 4-minute speech that you make.
All right, so these are some of our past topics. They involve international domestic issues, for example, you know, economic globalization and its effect on poverty, Obama's community college plan.
Okay, it was overall free community college or technical college.
Okay, if you come to McLean Debate, you'll get to meet Fatima. And Fatima is very opinionated.
No, I'm not in the debate. This guy was like, you can't use Obama's plan. That's not in the resolution.
All right. I'm sorry. I was politically inaccurate. In the United States, students should be guaranteed 2 years of free tuition to a community college or to technical college.
Yes.
Yeah. So, why did you put it twice?
I don't know.
Just to make a point.
Yeah. All right. Single gender classrooms and public subsidies for.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll get really fun ones like state mandated administration of childhood vaccines is justified. Other times we'll get super boring ones like dedevelopmental aid should be prioritized over military assistance in the Sahel region of Africa.
I can't.
Some things you'll notice that are like common among multiple resolutions is the word on balance at the beginning, which I think we touched upon previously. That sort of means that you're weighing the arguments
to
determine like what is more like what is a effect that has more magnitude than another, which can affect like who wins the debate if they have more like impactful points. Also, you'll sometimes get like a location given. You know, for example, in the United States, it's one American schools, so that can be sort of limiting in like the scope of your evidence.
And I also think it's important to know that there are a very, very wide variety of topics. So if you're into foreign policy and you want to go into that, then there are topics about the Sahel region of Africa and about UN peacekeeping. If you're into domestic issues, or even if you're into sports, we had a sports subsidies topic. If you're into domestic politics, then this month's or next month's topic for the National Debate Association is going to be about anonymous speech and how that fits into the role of the Constitution and how that benefits American citizens. So there really is something for everybody.
Yeah, debate's not just about winning and losing. It's about learning what you're talking about and honestly just enjoying what you're saying. Because in the end, you'll always have some sort of biased judge that may say you've lost when in actuality you won. In the end, it's not about the numbers or the words you win. It's about what you take out of debate. And if you're here to win, then that's great. If you're here to learn, that's even better.
At the end of the day, I still know way more about nuclear proliferation than I ever thought I would. So.
I think that's it.
Is everything?
Wow. Good job.
Bye, guys.